Thank you all for joining us for our SICSS Howard Mathematica lunchtime talk with Rabiu Al-Hassan from FactSpace West Africa and Raymond Lee from FakeNet AI. During these chats while you chew, you'll meet interesting people or organizations that are doing cool and complementary work to what you're currently learning about in our Summer Institute at Howard University. If you don't have your lunch yet, hit pause. For those of you with food and beverage in hand, let's get started.
Thanks, Nanette. Hello, everyone. I'm Raymond Lee from FakeNet AI. Joining us also today is Rabiu Al-Hassan from FactSpace West Africa. And we've partnered on a project to detect deepfakes to restore media trust. Deepfakes are a significant threat, and few enterprises or individuals are prepared. Deepfake technology is AI-generated media that looks and sounds incredibly realistic. The video that you see on the screen is an example of deepfake technology. The actor in the middle is controlling the figures surrounding him. And as you can see, it looks incredibly realistic. Deepfake technology is advancing rapidly. It's becoming more realistic, faster to create, and more accessible. It used to require coding skills and thousands of hours of compute time to create a deepfake. Now you can simply download an app and create a deepfake in minutes. This is a problem because deepfakes are a powerful weapon for fraud, defamation, and disinformation. I'll walk through an example of a few different types of deepfakes, starting with the Tom Cruise deepfake. This is a face swap deepfake in which the original actor's face is replaced. I'll play a clip.
What's up? What's up, TikTok? You guys cool if I play some sports?
Now this last animation here shows you how a face swap deepfake works. The actor in the middle, the original actor's face is replaced with Tom Cruise's face through machine learning technology. Now I'll walk through another example, the Obama deepfake, in which Jordan Peele manipulates what Obama says. This is a face-to-face deepfake in which the original actor's face is reenacted by the manipulator, and in this case, it's Jordan Peele.
The search for stories is on, out there, in your world. So creators, wherever you are, with all that you hold, tell us, what's a story only you can tell? What's your great story?
Okay.
We're entering
apologies for that ad.
It's simpler.
And
now, see,
okay. Now on to the real demonstration of the Obama deepfake.
I would never say these things, at least not in a public address, but someone else would. Someone like Jordan Peele. This is a dangerous time. Moving forward, we need to be more vigilant with what we trust from the internet. It's a time when we need to rely on trusted news sources. It may sound basic, but how we move forward in the age of information is going to be the difference between whether we survive or whether we become some kind of fuck.
Okay, and as you can see, Jordan Peele is controlling Obama's face movements, and this is a deepfake generated through machine learning technology as well. Essentially, facial landmarks for both actors are identified, and the manipulating actor Jordan Peele can then manipulate the facial landmarks on Obama's face to create the deepfake. In this case, Jordan Peele actually has a very good impersonation of Obama's voice as well. In the previous video of Tom Cruise, that actor also had a great impersonation of Tom Cruise's voice.
We're entering it.
But there are also audio deepfakes. So here's an example of a Joe Rogan audio deepfake created via speech synthesis. So speech synthesis deepfakes are created through AI-powered text-to-speech models in which a machine learning model is trained on audio clips plus transcripts to understand what the actor is saying and how they say it in order to recreate that actor's voice and then make them say pretty much whatever you'd like them to say via text-to-speech technology. Here's an example of a Joe Rogan audio deepfake.
Friends, I've got something new to tell all of you. I've decided to sponsor a hockey team made up entirely of chimps. I'm tired of people telling me that chimps are not capable of kicking human ass in sports. Chimps are just superior athletes. And these chimps have been working out hard. They're throwing kettlebells, battle ropes, everything. I've got them on a strict diet of bone broth and elk meat.
And as you can tell, if you've heard Joe Rogan's voice before, it sounds pretty realistic. So the problem with deepfakes is that they can be used as a powerful tool for weaponization. They've already been used in a couple of cases of fraud. One case is one in which fraudsters scammed an executive, a UK-based energy firm, out of $243,000. The fraudster created an audio deepfake in which the voice and speaking style resembled that of the executive's boss. The fraudster then convinced that executive that it was, in fact, their boss. The executive then wired $243,000 to the bank account of the scammer. Another chilling case is in which a plaintiff presented synthetic audio as evidence in court. So there was a child custody case in the UK in which a parent presented synthetic audio of the other parent making a series of violent threats and presented that as evidence. Fortunately, there was an evidence trail left in the metadata of the audio file, and forensics analysts were able to determine that it was a fake audio clip. In the future, that evidence trail may not be present, and that's where it's important to have deepfake detection technology to combat this kind of threat. Deepfakes can also be used for defamation. In Pennsylvania, a mother used the deepfake to frame cheerleading rivals. The mother created unsavory deepfakes of the rival cheerleading team members and sent those deepfakes to the team's coach in an attempt to get those cheerleaders kicked off the team. Now, recent reports suggest that cheap fakes instead of deepfakes may have been used. And the difference between deepfakes and cheap fakes is deepfakes are AI generated and cheap fakes are not. An example of cheap fakes are, you may have seen some face swapping pictures in the past and they look pretty fake. That is a cheap fake in which somebody just replaces somebody's head with another person's head in a photo, and you can tell it's fake. The powerful thing about deepfakes are because they're AI generated, fake videos, fake audios can be created with greater quality and greater speed. Now, there are also several victims of deepfake revenge porn, and victims must deal with the harmful effects, including victim blaming and speaking out against deepfake revenge porn clips may actually lead to more abuse as well. It may egg on the abusers. So it's important to have deepfake detection tools in place so that victims can be protected against this type of technology. Deepfakes can also be used as a form of to perpetuate disinformation and propaganda. It's a very real possibility that a deepfake of a political leader is used to spark violence or unrest. We know that foreign disinformation campaigns have sought to deceive and influence, and deepfake technology will make these campaigns more believable and damaging. You can imagine what would happen if a deepfake of a political leader was released prior to an election that may actually influence the election results. Another scary example is if a deepfake of a world leader is released and that deepfake says that that world leader is going to, say, declare war on another country. At that point, what will the other country do? Will they retaliate? Or will they be able to detect that it's a deepfake and be able to move on with the appropriate action? The FBI warns that a cyber attack is almost certain within 12 to 18 months. The public and private sector are targets. And as I mentioned earlier, there's few individuals or enterprises that are prepared. And FakeNet AI and FactSpace West Africa is developing deepfake detection technology to protect enterprises and individuals. A second order effect of deepfake technology is the liar's dividend, which is essentially the plausible deniability of all media. As it becomes easier and easier to create deepfakes and these deepfakes become more and more realistic, trust in media erodes. So as deepfake technology becomes more realistic and these deepfakes get released to the public will then start trusting what they see or hear less and less. Video evidence used to be sort of like a gold standard for evidence, but as deepfake technology improves, then trust in media becomes reduced. So it becomes more and more likely that somebody who is, say, a world leader is caught making an inappropriate comment on video. It becomes easier and easier for them to say that that wasn't me, that was a deepfake, when in fact it was them. So that is an example of the liar's dividend. And to combat against the liar's dividend, detection of deepfakes and education of deepfakes is key. So I'll go through a few ways in which we can identify deepfakes. Some deepfakes are lower quality, and in lower quality deepfakes, you can actually detect deepfakes with the human eye. One way to detect deepfakes is through water splotches. From left to right, you can see that there's water splotches in these deepfake images. So on the left image, by the person's ear, you can see the water splotch. By the person's hair, you can see the water splotch, and by the person's ear, you can see the water splotch. So these are abnormal artifacts that are introduced through the deepfake generation process. As deepfake technology gets better and better, these artifacts are reduced. However, there still are deepfakes on the internet in which you can view water splotches, and you can use that as a way to identify deepfakes with the human eye. Another characteristic of deepfakes is background abnormalities. So deepfake generation algorithms are primarily trained on the face, and therefore they neglect how to generate the background. And when that happens, you can see some pretty interesting background artifacts. So on the left image, you can see that the deepfake generated face is in the center, and his companion's face looks as if it's morphed. In the middle photo, upon first glance, you may think that there is a blurry, say, playground in the background, but if you look more closely, you can see that it's probably not a playground. There are features of that blurry image that appear as if it's not like a real structure. Now on the right image, you can see that on the top right, there's something that, upon first glance, you may think that there's a tree trunk or tree branch, I should say, in the top right. But if you look more closely, it appears that it cannot be a tree branch because tree branches don't have that type of structure. So background abnormalities are another way to identify deepfakes. You can also identify deepfakes through Eyeglass defects. So deepfake generation algorithms have a hard time generating symmetrical objects. And I'll walk through a few examples of that. So on the left, you see that the person has Wayfarer type of glasses in which you would expect a bead to be on both sides of the frame. But in this case, the bead is only on one side of the frame, which is not characteristic of these Wayfarer type glasses. In the middle image, you see that the person's temple has only, or the person's frames have only one temple, and that's on that person's right side. On the left side, you see that there's no temple there, it's missing. And so that's another defect of deepfake generation technology. Now on the right side image, you can see that their frame is mismatched. If you look at the person's right side of the frame, there appears to be some sort of like wooden type of design, but then if you look on their left side, that wooden type of design is not there. It's a different type of lens or temple design. So eyeglass defects or defects in symmetry are another way to identify deepfakes. Now, I'll take this time to ask the audience their thoughts on which one of these images is a deepfake. Now, given the examples of deepfake artifacts that I demonstrated, which of these images do you think is a deepfake? And I'll give you a few seconds to examine each of the images before making your selection. Now, if you guessed the one on the right, you are correct. And as called out by the red arrow, you can see that there are water splotches on the person's right side of their face or hair. So there are also automatic detection methods powered by machine learning that are used to detect deepfakes. And these methods score over 90% accuracy on the benchmarks that they've been tested on. So there's two types of automatic detection methods, automatic machine learning detection methods. And those are high-level methods and low-level methods. And I'll go into each of those methods. So there's high-level methods in which you can identify semantically meaningful features to determine whether or not the video that you're looking at is a deepfake. One thing you can do to, one method is looking for head and facial movement signatures. So the way that a person tilts their head, swivels their head, and moves their facial features concurrently is a way to identify sort of that person's unique signature. And you can use their unique head and facial movement signature to determine whether or not the video that you're looking at is actually the person that you think it is, in this case, Obama, or somebody else. And so on the top left, you can see an image of Obama's eyebrow lift intensity measured over time. You can couple this measurement along with the degree of their head tilt, head nod, and correlate all those features together to identify their signature and use that to identify whether or not a video you're looking at is actually them or not. Another high-level detection method is using phoneme and viseme mismatches. So on the bottom left is a table of phoneme and viseme matches, and essentially you can see that these images are labeled, the sounds that are made and the corresponding mouth movements are listed in this table. And deepfakes generation tools have a hard time matching these phoneme and viseme method, or matching the phonemes and visemes correctly. And so what you can do is you can identify these phoneme and viseme mismatches to determine whether or not what you're viewing is a deepfake. So for example, on the top right of this chart, you can see MBP, and you can see that the mouth is usually closed when making that sound. And then if you look at a video and you see that the mouth is, say, open while that sound is being made, then you've identified a phoneme and viseme mismatch, and you can use that as evidence to show that there is a mismatch there, and perhaps what you're viewing is a deepfake. Another automatic detection method is low-level methods, in which you train a machine learning model on thousands of real and deepfake videos or audio, and you identify artifacts, pixelations, or patterns that are common to deepfake videos. Some of those artifacts are the ones that I mentioned earlier, such as the water splotches. If you look at the pictures on the top here, those are also examples of artifacts or pixelations that are introduced through the deepfake generation process. And so if you train a machine learning model on thousands of deepfakes and thousands of real videos won't have these pixelations, deepfakes will, and the machine learning model is able to identify deepfakes through these artifacts. Now, these are lower quality deepfakes in which these artifacts are actually perceptible, but in higher quality deepfakes, these artifacts or patterns may be imperceptible. And that's why it's important to use an automated method to detect deepfakes. On the bottom of on the bottom here, you can see images of spectrograms of synthetic audio on the left and original audio on the right. And you can tell just by looking at these two spectrograms that the synthetic audio on the left has more inconsistencies in pitch and volume than the original audio on the right. And you can then train a machine learning model on thousands of spectrograms of real audio and synthetic audio. And a machine learning model is able to detect these differences to conclude whether or not audio is a deepfake. So deepfakes can cause a lot of harm if they're released on social media or on news media. And fact-checking organizations such as FactSpace West Africa are well equipped to combat deepfakes that are released through news media or social media, because they've built trust, they've built an audience that trusts them, and they will be able to debunk a deepfake should a deepfake be released to social media or news media. And this is our team that's working on this threat. So I'm Raymond Lee. I'm CEO of FakeNet AI. I have a master's in data science from UC Berkeley, 10 plus years of industry experience, and I've raised 100K in funding. Jay is the VP of R&D. He has experience as a postdoc at UC Berkeley and has written 35 plus AI publications. We also have research and engineering affiliates from world-renowned UC Berkeley organizations such as Berkeley AI Research, Machine Learning at Berkeley, and Sutarja Center for Entrepreneurship and Technology. And we've partnered with FactSpace West Africa to equip them with deepfake detection capabilities and therefore combat deepfakes that are released in Africa. And I'll take this time to introduce Rabiu Al-Hassan.
Thank you very much, Raymond, for handing over to me. So basically, I'm Rabiu Al-Hassan. I'm the founder of FactSpace West Africa, a non-profit social enterprise committed to tackling misinformation, disinformation, and propaganda across the West African sub-region. So some brief about FactSpace West Africa. We are a non-profit social enterprise, as I mentioned. We focus on tackling misinformation and propaganda. And we have launched our first project. The project was launched in Ghana, which is one of the 17 West African countries with a population of more than 30 million out of the more than 400 million people that populates the West African sub-region. Since 2019, we've been involved in a number of sub-projects, which would include what we all know with regards COVID-19, the infodemic that came with it. We've also been working on tackling election misinformation during the 2020 Ghanaian presidential and parliamentary elections. So I'll be hitting more on that in subsequent slides. Next slide. So some gist about how we've operated since 2019 when the project was launched. We've since become IFCN verified, IFCN being the International FactChecking Network Code of Principles. So it's a global media metric standard that we've signed onto. We've received in excess of $40,000 grant support from a variety of partners, including the Shuttleworth Foundation, the French Embassy, the European Union through Article 19 and Medan, plus other supports from other organizations. We've since represented on the Global Facts, which is a global fact-checking conference that brings together fact-checkers across the world. We presented our efforts to tackle COVID-19 misinformation last year. We've also represented at the Africa Investigative Journalism Conference, presenting our work tackling COVID-19 misinformation. Our partnerships range from the current COVID-19 Alliance, which involves bringing together close to 100 fact-checking organizations around the world under the IFCN COVID-19 Alliance, helping tackle the infodemic that came with the pandemic. It's published in excess of 10,000 debunks or fact checks and has been nominated this year for the Nobel Peace Prize. We are also part of the new WHO-hosted network, which is the Africa Infodemic Response Alliance, which brings together about 15 organizations helping tackle COVID-19 misinformation. 5 of these organizations are IFCN verified African fact checkers, and it includes GhanaFact, Dubawa, Africa Check, Pesa Check, just to mention a few. The InfoFinder project was one of 6 global winners of the Facebook Innovation Challenge. Africa Check brought my apologies. I think I froze there for a minute. Let me continue the presentation. So with our partnerships, we are part of the IFCN COVID-19 Alliance, which brings together close to 100 fact-checking organizations around the world to help tackle COVID-19 misinformation. It's been nominated this year for the Nobel Peace Prize, the project. We are also part of the WHO-hosted network, bringing together about 15 organizations to help tackle COVID-19 misinformation on the African continent, called the Africa Infodemic Response Alliance. We are also part of the InfoFinder project, which was one of 6 global winners of the Facebook Innovation Challenge, basically creating a repository of facts from the work of African fact checkers, and it includes Africa Check, Dubawa, GhanaFact, and ZimFact. Ahead of the Ghanaian election last year, December 2020, GhanaFact also created a fact-checking network, which brought together more than 100 fact-checking organizations, more than 100 journalists actually, drawn from about 35 media organizations spread across the 16 regions of Ghana to ensure we are able to tackle misinformation both online and offline. We partnered Facebook to ensure we were able to escalate claims, viral claims that had been debunked by us, to ensure it wasn't weaponized on their platform. Next slide. The Ghana project. So Ghana in West Africa is seen as a relatively stable democracy. We've had power change from one government to the other. We have guaranteed press freedom, guaranteed by the country's 1992 constitution. We have about 50% of the more than 30 million of our population connected to the internet. In a 2019 survey, we realized that there was a challenge with regards to misinformation and disinformation, or what popularly people refer to as fake news, with 69% of the 400 people we interviewed around the country suggesting they had encountered fake news in the last year. And they said more than 90% said there was the need for a full-time fact-checking organization to help deal with the misinformation and disinformation they encounter online. And we also realized that the ecosystem was dominated by some actors, and largely they were politicians, bloggers or influencers, journalists or citizen journalists. And then there's this particular group that needs to be researched more. And they largely have to be actors that are influenced to do kind of interesting activities online to sway public opinion. And these are largely mercenaries that have been paid to do the bidding of politicians online. So with regards to this particular group, there is some emerging developments in the country that would help us throw some more light on this. There was a hashtag that trended in the last few days called Fixed the Country, and there was a counter hashtag which said Fix Yourself. So basically the Fix the Country hashtag was an organic hashtag of the public venting their disappointments with regards government policies and the high cost of living in the country. And the counter hashtag had to do with some paid actors largely who came to counter and change the narrative and the framing of discussions attacking people. So this basically plays out also leading to the elections where politicians want to influence discussions online and pay people to go online to sway public opinion. But we'll talk much more about this maybe during another session. So the next slide. GhanaFact. GhanaFact launched in 2019 after we launched FactSpace West Africa. We focus on 4 key areas: politics, governance, health, and economy. We also try to pay particular attention to the promises that are made by politicians, and we call this the promise meter, where we try to verify whether promises made by politicians have actually been actualized. We also have been involved in 2 key projects, which would have to do with the COVID-19 misinformation and helping tackle the infodemic. Also, ahead of the elections, we put together structures and systems to ensure we're able to successfully counter election misinformation. And this involved a multi-agency approach where we brought together civil society organizations, the largest election observer group in the country, CODEU, OneUp. We engaged Facebook. We partnered with Midan. We partnered with Deutsche Welle to be able to publish some of our reports internationally, all in the aim to tackle election misinformation. We've as well been going around the country to train journalists as well as students, trying to spread the word and trying to spread the skill of fact-checking independently. So we've trained more than 100 journalists drawn from the 35 media organizations that I've mentioned, and the journalists are supposed to form fact-checking desks in their newsrooms. So the skill has been decentralized. And these same journalists are also helping us in flagging misinformation in various parts of the country. And they are helping us in cross-publishing our reports on traditional media platforms. And some of these reports are also transmitted in local languages to be able to reach people widely. We've also trained students. We've trained tertiary students from the leading university in the country, Ghana, University of Ghana, also the pioneering journalism institution in the country called Ghana Institute of Journalism. And we've also trained students drawn from the Institute of Business Management and Journalism. Next slide. So here is the fact-checking network I was talking about. This network was crucial in helping us tackle misinformation both online and offline. To be able to successfully execute a fact-checking project in a country like Ghana, where we have multiple languages, where we have issues with regards a large majority of the population consuming news via traditional media, radio, TV, where we have not necessarily all the population connected to internet, then you would have to devise various means and ways to be able to achieve a large majority of the population. And we think this strategy we deployed helped us in successfully engaging a majority of the population by reaching people both online and offline, and also in their local mother tongue. Our future plans, we are expecting to expand into other West African countries, with Gambia being in sight. Before end of year, they'll be having their elections, so we'll be launching our project in the Gambia to help deal with misinformation, disinformation, and propaganda in the Gambia. We would also be hoping to execute more research papers to be able to unearth some of the details that have not yet been reviewed with regards to the emerging space of fact-checking and how actors are leveraging on misinformation to sway public opinion. We will also be hoping to leverage on the Ghana Fact-Checking Network, and that's where our efforts to tackle deepfake come in. What we are trying to do is to leverage on our network of trained journalists and students to kind of dovetail into the machine learning bits of the technology we'll be hoping to use in detecting deepfakes. So we'll be leveraging on these students to help with the machine learning of the tool we'll be deploying to detect deepfakes. We would also be hoping, actually, we've launched a dedicated web platform on our Ghana Fact project, that's the website, where we are solely going to educate the public about deepfakes and also help the public anytime we are alerted to successfully detect and debunk issues or videos related to synthetic media. We'll also be hoping to leverage on multimedia videos and graphics to increase reach. And in all this, we'll hope to encourage other fact-check. Apologies again. I had a short challenge with my internet, but let's get on with it. So we'll also be hoping to leverage on multimedia videos and graphics to increase reach online. We are largely a web-based platform trying to engage people digitally. But to increase reach, we've noticed through research that it would be crucial that we deploy multimedia content, videos, animations, graphics, which are more simpler to consume because people don't like to read. So we deploy these strategies to increase our reach online. Next slide. So you can connect with us. We are looking for AI researchers, data scientists, software engineers, animators, journalists, and other interested folks. So you can either sign up for updates on GhanaFact, the deepfake section, or you can reach us info@ghanafact.com or raymond@fakenetai.com. As synthetic media technology advances, trust in media declines. We must act now to restore trust and prevent future attacks. And you can imagine what we expect here in West Africa if we are to be inundated with synthetic media. Nanette will be taking over from me.
Thank you all so much for joining us. And thank you to everyone out there for coming to our SICSS Howard Mathematica lunchtime talk with Rabu Al-Hassan from FactSpace West Africa and Raymond Lee from FactNet AI. So from here, we're going to encourage you to take a look at our website, follow us on social media, and join our email list. We hope to see you again soon. Thank you.